final review of pre-algebra concepts is to find the slope of a line using the slope formula. Now, just as a quick review for slope, when you think of slope, you're think of a hill, and if you have a really shallow hill that doesn't get very steep, then you have a fairly low slope. But if you have a very steep hill, that has a very high slope. So when we're looking at lines on a number line, they're basically a lot like hills. You could have a slope that looks like this. That looks like it wouldn't be too terrible to walk up. But if the slope of your hill looked like this, well, you would probably die trying to get up that hill. Okay, so that's the idea of slope, is how big of a steep hill do we have. And the reason it's important is because it helps us look at and visualize statistical correlations and how closely things are related. There was a really fun study conducted, I don't know when, but they discovered something really interesting. They discovered that as ice cream sales went up in the summer, so let's say that every tick on this represents 100. Let's do it in hundreds. 100 ice cream sales, right? Hundreds. So for every 100 or 200 or 300 or 400 or 500 or 600 ice cream sales, basically as this number got bigger, the more ice cream sales there were, the fewer crimes were committed. Let's also do this one in hundreds. So, as we got up into the 600 ice cream sales over the summer, crime started going down. And so the slope of this line would actually look like this. Because the more ice cream sales you had, the fewer crimes were committed. This is 1, this is 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, some people might be like, well, why don't we sell more ice cream year-round, and that way crimes will always go down? The problem was we can't say for sure that it was because the ice cream sales went up that the crimes went down. All that they do know is that as people bought ice cream in the summer, crime rates dropped. But it's super interesting to look at and be like, I wonder why. The more ice cream sales we have, the more time we spend hanging out over here, the less crimes we have. I don't know. In this case, what we have, though, is a negative slope because we're walking downhill. And we always go from left to right. We read from left to right, and we go down slopes from left to right. So this is a negative slope. And sometimes it's pretty easy to just visualize our slope like that. But every once in a while, we're just handed a set of numbers, and we have to figure out how steep our slope is. How correlated is this ice cream sales to crimes committed relationship? Well, in that case, we have a simple formula that can help us figure out the slope of a line. This formula is going to be written out terribly. I apologize for my poor computer handwriting. M stands for the slope. And then you solve it by saying y2, little subscript 2, minus y1 gets divided by x2 minus x1. And you're like, oh no, there's 2 y's and 2 x's, I'm going to die. Don't worry. It's just saying y taken at 2 different points on our line and x taken at 2 different points on our line. If we add those together and divide them, we'll get our slope. So let's look at our ice cream sales. We can see that when we have, let's go back to red. When x was 0 right here, y was at 5. So that's going to be our first set of numbers. And we write that in parentheses. When x was 0, comma, y was 5. Choop. x1 and y1. Well, let's find another set of points that we think we can handle. It looks like when x was at 5, right here, y was at 2. So our second set of numbers would be when x is 5, y is 2. And x comes first because we prefer x. It goes x, y, z, so it goes x and y first. X first, then y. So that's x2, and that would be y2. Now it's pretty simple to take these numbers and put them into our equation. We have y2. Well, let's look over here. y2 was right here, so that means 2. y2 stands for 2. What's y1? Well, y1 was 5. 2 minus 5, that's pretty simple. Over here we have x2, which was 5. And then x1 was 0. So let's just do a little bit of simple math. 2 minus 5 is -3. And 5 minus 0 is 5. So the slope of our line is -3/5. And we already knew it was a negative slope because it was going downhill. And then 3/5 just shows us how related these two things are. If we had something that was a 1-to-1 relationship, that would mean that for every 100 ice cream sales, crimes, in this case, went up 100. That would be a 1-to-1 relationship. And then if we had something that was less related, the line would be a little shallower. And if we had something that was more related, the line would be quite high. So the actual value of the number just tells us how related they are, and then the negative or positive tells us which direction our line is going. Hopefully that makes sense and helps you solve your problem in your pre-algebra review. And we'll get started on algebra concepts in the next video. See you guys soon.